So up to now we have learned about many different types of annotations, MVC controller, model attribute, and also we have learned about the bin validation. Now in this video we are going to learn about one of the joining types of different entities. So what do you mean by when I'm saying joining types? I have a one model class, and name of that model class I will keep it as person. Okay. Now inside this person class there are multiple things are there. For example, let's say name is there, correct? After name, age is there. Okay, now I created CRUD operation, create, read, update, delete operation with the help of this person entity class. Now I got another requirement to add the address also. So for instead of adding the address here, means multiple addresses here in address, there are multiple things will come, right? Street will come, look, pin code will come, after that district will come, and many other things will come under address. So what I thought, instead of creating inside this person, I will create another table, address. Okay, and inside that address I will keep what is that, street. After street I will keep pin code, state, okay, country, or you can say then landmark also it will come under that. So that many things it's come inside an address. So whenever I am calling a person's name, I also want that person's address. So for that I have to connect this person entity to this address entity. Okay, for that I have to use different types of joining type. Now if I'm only connecting through one ID to another ID, or you can say that one person to this address only, that will call unidirectional. That means from person entity to I'm calling address entity. But if I am calling person entity to address entity, then it should be unidirectional. But if I am calling person to address, from person through address, and also address through person, then that will call bidirectional. Unidirectional, and this one will be called bidirectional. Okay, if I am calling only person through address or address through person, then it will be called unidirectional. But if I am calling in both ways, either person or address, or I am calling both of them in a single project, then it will be implemented known as bidirectional. Okay, now there are different types of ways to join from one entity to another entity. One of them is known as one-to-one. One-to-one means that it is connected from, I'm calling from one section of person entity to one section to address entity. For example, let's say I will take the recently which I have created right now, a coaching institute. Okay, inside coaching institute there are multiple things are there. First one is I have given ID. After that ID, salary, after that fees, after that maintenance, after that head of finance department, right? Head of finance department. Now inside in this coaching institute also I will add one more. I will call that entity which I have created another one. For let's say the entity I have created address. Okay, now let's create another entity and let's keep the name of this entity as address. So here also I will give ID, and for now this is just for the practice purpose, so only I will give one address. Let's say only I will give location. Okay, now with the help of this address I'm calling to this ID, and with the help of this address to ID This address to ID, I am calling, I am accessing the data of this location, correct? So this is one by one address entity to ID, means one section I am only calling from this address. This is called one-to-one connection. So okay, and this is what we are going to do see in our video. One-to-one unidirectional means only from coaching institute to address, and after that we will see bidirectional, that means either it can call from coaching institute to address, or also it can call from address to coaching institute. Both of them we will see in this video. And this connection of one ID to another ID, or you can say one attribute of another attribute of address with the help of an ID, is known as one-to-one mapping. There are 4 different types of mapping exist. The first one that we are going to see is one-to-one. So let's see how we are going to implement this one. So for first of all, one entity here, and the name of that entity we will give as address. Let's change the default name. I will keep the name here as institute address. I think that will be better. Now mention 2 different attributes. The name of the different attribute will be private long ID. Another one is private string location. Okay, so this ID I will mark it as primary key of the ID of the address, and after that auto incrementation of the table. We already have seen how auto incrementation works. Generated value, and here I am going to mention strategy. After that, the next thing we are going to do is we are going to create one repository for this entity interface, and we will keep the name as address repository. We are going to use this one in our later videos also. Okay, so 2 things that we have done. We have created one model, address model, and another one we have created here, address repository. So it is a mapping between coaching institute to address. So according to our diagram, we have to add one attribute to coaching institute. The attribute will be private address, and we give something else, coaching institute address. And here I am going to mark from this one, it will connect it to this address ID, right? So I am going to mark it here at 1-to-1. Next, at join column. Name I will give as address ID, reference column name, equal to ID. Alright, so when I'm putting reference column name ID and name equal to address ID, it will connect with this ID to this ID. It is going to map it, and it is 1 to 1. Here I have mapped here 1 to 1, and it is a unidirectional because only it is connecting from address to from coaching institute attribute to address attribute ID, but not in both ways. So it is unidirectional. Now before we start implementing other things, for example that our fields in the JSP file, first of all we will see that two different tables were created or not in H2 database. So let's run the application. So application started. Now let's refresh. Okay, now here I am going to open H2 console. Now you can see that here two different tables created, coaching details and institute address. Okay, now let's run. Now you can see that here ID fees, head of finance department, maintenance, salary, and here one ID added, address ID, and after that select ID and location, select institute from address. Here two attributes added. Now when I will add the details, then here from address ID, which one is going to foreign key, it will be connect with this address institute primary key ID. Don't have to make any other changes in controller or service. Yeah, we just have to go to our JSP file and we will add one field here, that is location. Done. Okay, now let's go to another JSP file, coaching institute, and here I am going to add in the beginning location. I think location is the correct spelling of location. Yeah, alright, let's close most of them, we don't need. I think most of the implementation was done. Now let's start the application here. Okay, application started, no error. Let's refresh this one first. Now institute details and institute address created. Coaching details and coaching address created. Now let's all the fields are properly created. Now here I am going to refresh this one screen, no error. You can see that one field is added, location. So let's go to the create section. In create section, it is coming some sort of an error. Bean property coaching institute address is not readable or has an invalid getter method. Does the return type of the getter method match the parameter type of the setter? Here coming coaching institute, and here I am. I will try to ID. I will try to put only location. Let me try this one, might be the problem. Nope. Okay, I got my mistake. I did a mistake here. See, I have created one attribute here, address, coaching institute address, with an address type, right? But I haven't created setter and getter of that. Coaching institute address, now it's got created. Let's go back here, refresh the screen, and here just refresh, try again. Okay, now it's coming. Now let's add the field here. Salary should be 5,000, fees for 15,000. Tab maintenance, if I will do, then it should be around, let's give 4,000. And head of finance department Aditya. Now let's add details. Location, I will give my hometown, state Jharkhand. That will be better. Now submit details. Again it is throwing an error. Error should be that com.org.model expression, save the transient instance. Okay, there was an unexpected error of type org.hibernate or transient property object references are unsaved. Save the transient instances before flushing. com.org.com.org.coachinginstitute.address, com.org.model address. And here it is, save the transient instance before flushing. Model address entity. Now there is one more important thing that you need to save the transient state before the flushing. At org.hibernate cascading action, cascading was not done. Okay, now let's talk about cascading. Before implementing. Okay, now what is cascading? When one class is dependent to another class, like we saw in the previous diagram, person to address. So one class is dependent to another class. So internally we are forcing to save the data. Means you can see that I haven't implemented anything in controller part or service part, right? So by default internally we are trying to, you can see that I haven't done anything in controller and service. So internally what I am doing, I am trying to save the data, save it from coaching institute to coaching institute entity to address entity. So we can do that, but we can do that with the help of a cascading. Okay, cascading helps to establish a dependency between related entities, and JPA provides one entity, or I can say that one class for cascading, and name of that class will be, we have to import this class. It will be something like this: javax dot persistence dot cascade type. This one is provided by JPA. Okay, cascade type. There are different types of a cascading exist. The first one that we are going to talk about, persist. Another one is merge. After that detach, refresh, remove, and all these, this persist, merge, detach, refresh, remove, which comes under cascade type, what they will do, it will provide a parent entity whenever we are doing any type of, when we are doing any type of changes to parent entity, changes will also affect child entity or related entity. Okay, what does that mean? That means that, for example, let's say persist, what that will do, persist entity will, parent entity, whenever it will persist, child entity will automatically get persist. Okay, same thing with comes under this one, merge. Whenever we are merging the parent entity, child entity will also get merged with the parent entity which is got connected. Okay, and detach, by the name itself you can start, whenever I am detaching from parent entity, so child entity will also get detached. Same thing about the refresh. Okay, same thing about the remove, and whenever I wanted to do all of them, means persist, merge, detach, refresh, remove in one single project, then instead of using one by one at a time, I'm going to use another attribute of this cascade type, and name of that attribute is all I am going to use. So this exception came because of that. What this exception is saying, that you are trying to save the data in coaching institute, but before that you also have to save the data of address institute, but you haven't mentioned anywhere about the address institute. So what I am doing, I am trying to save the data of address entity with the help of a coaching entity, but I haven't mentioned what type of cascading I want to implement here. So this application, this practice application, I want to show you create, read, update, delete operation. So remove, refresh, detach, and most of the time I'm going to use all of them. So instead of using one by one, what I'm going to do, I'm going to mention in coaching institute, in a one-to-one, here I'm going to mention cascade equal to cascade okay. Now I have mentioned application started. Alright, now let's go back here, refresh the screen. Now try to save the data. Let's give the location name my hometown, Jharkhand, and try to save the data. Now you can see that data got saved. Now I'm going to just refresh the screen, and after that, first of all, open this one. Now you can see that all the details here, but in address ID it is given here is 2, and this 2 is address ID is mapped to this address ID of coaching details. 2 is mapped to this ID of the institute address, and through that I am accessing this data Jharkhand. Okay, you understood how one-to-one mapping connects? It is connecting to map this one to this one, address ID to this address ID. Our application, you can see that how I have done a create. Now what about read? I am doing this one. Now what about the update operation? So instead of Jharkhand, I will change my hometown name to, or institute name to, Odisha. Add details. Update operation was done successfully. Now here with that, now you can see that instead of Jharkhand name deleted, it did not deleted, another name was added, Odisha, and this address ID 3 was mapped to here, to 3. Okay, now what about delete operation? Let's delete this one. Now you see that application was deleted. Now run again. Now you can see that address ID is 3 is mapped to this 3, that institute address 3. Now this Odisha and this one got deleted. So create, read, update, delete, all the 4 operation was done, and we have done this all the 4 operation with the help of a cascading. With the cascading, I told them to do all that persist, merge, refresh, remove with the help of a cascade.all. So what I have shown you in this diagram, this is unidirectional. Okay, now we are going to talk about bidirectional. Bidirectional means now I have only tried to access from this to this, correct? Only try to access. Now I will try to access from address to person. Okay, now person to address I tried. This one is called is unidirectional. Now I will try to access from address to person. Okay, now this one will be known as bidirectional. Let's see how we are going to implement that one. To implement a bidirectional, what we will do, we will go to the address.java.model class. And here I am going to add one more attribute, and attribute type will be coaching institute. And here I am going to add OneToOne mapped by, the name will be same what I have written in coaching institute address attribute, that reference type, and this one I am going to write it down here. Now okay, now with this coaching institute address I have mapped it 1 to 1. So what it will happen internally, this attribute is going to map to this one, and through that I can access the data from the address section also. Okay, now after implementing this map by coaching institute address, I have already created the repository. You have seen. Now what I will do, now I am going to add interface service, and after that I am going to implement that interface service. So let's create one. I will give the name interface address service, and instead of taking all the data, I will just take one data, that get all details. Okay, the job of interface class was done. Now the next, I am going to implement this interface. For that I am going to add one class, advanced address service. Okay, I have done a mistake here. It should be address, right? Return type. There also I have to change, right? All right, address service, job service, and interface service, both the implementation was done. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create the controller, and name I will keep it as address controller. One last thing I think I forgot to do here, it is a service, and I have to mark this as a service annotation. Okay, now the controller, I have to mark this one as @controller. Okay, the auto wiring of address service was done. Now let's write of retrieving all the methods from all the data from service to controller. Public string get all details add attribute, let's say attribute address only I will give, and here get all details. Return, let's keep the GSP file name as address only, address address. I think it will work. Now I will map this one as get address total details. That might work, I think. Alright, now I think controller part is also done. Now I will create a GSP file. Now let's create a GSP file here. Alright, I have copied the data of that coaching institute only, and here I am going to change few one or things here. So you know that from the controller I am accessing address, so here I am going to give the name add, that will be better. Why it is saying that? Alright, it is showing unknown tag because I haven't implemented GSTL core. GSTL tags I have not implemented it yet, so let's add. Done. Now here address, so few things I am going to remove because I am only retrieving the data from other side, so update and delete don't need. After that these two tags. Now I am accessing the data from the address side, so I will just write it addr.location, addr, let's go to, what is that, from coaching institute dot coaching institute dot fees maintenance, and here ADDR dot head of finance department. I think all the job is done. It should work properly. So what I will do, I will start the application. First of all, I will try to save. So first of all, I will try to save data from coaching institute side. So create salary. I will give let's say 15,000. 25, maintenance 4, head of finance department Aditya. Here I will give location as Jharkhand. Add details. Okay, details was added. Now I will try to access the same details from the other side. Let's see it is working or not. Localhost 8080 get address details. It should work. It's not working. Let's see what's the problem here. Maybe address controller get address total details. Name was wrong. Property coaching institute not found in com.org.model address. Property code not model address service dot get details. So property coaching institute not found. So let's go to GSP file and property coaching institute. Close this one first, all the data here. And let's try to understand what I have done here. Coaching institute dot java file. If I will go the coaching institute address, and here it came as coaching institute not found in com.org.model address. Mapped by coaching institute address. It should work, right? It is mapping through coaching institute, but it's not. Here I haven't created setter and getter of that. I'll shift as generate getter and setter. Okay, I have now created, but again application started. First of all, I will data again empty. Let's try to save some data here. Okay, location came as J, fees 25,000, salary 18,000, maintenance 4,000, head of finance department Aditya. Now if I will try to access the same data from the address side, I am able to access from both from the coaching institute side and address side also. To clear, what I will do, I will go to coachinginstitute.jsp and here I'm going to write data is accessing from coaching institute. And the same thing is accessing from address side. Let's refresh the screen. Here data is accessing from address side, and here data is accessing from coaching institute side. So we have seen the work of a unidirectional, how we can implement the unidirectional, and also we have seen how to work from the unidirectional, and if I wanted to from one model to another model, if I'm trying to save the data, I'm going to use cascade. Different types of cascade is there, but I have implemented read, create, read, update, delete, all the operations. So I've used cascade type.all, and if I wanted to access the data, or I can do both bidirectional side, then in that scenario I've just used map by coaching institute address. From there it is mapping, and I can access from both the side of the data. So we have seen the work of one-to-one, unidirectional and bidirectional, both the sides. So this is the end of the video. In the next video again we are going to see another one of the important programming concept of Spring Boot with the form of a project only. So if you are new to this channel, please like and subscribe my channel and press the bell icon for the regularly updates, and please stay tuned ADHYAN for the next upcoming video. Thank you.